I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day. I've known her for about 15 years. She adopted a dog from us when we were doing dachshund rescue work back when we lived in Nashville. And she's been having some issues with her 8-year-old daughter and doesn't know quite how to help her daughter because the things that she's been trying haven't been working. So I'm going to lead you through a chart today and how I approach them when I'm talking to people who I do their charts for, and talk about the solutions that the chart is offering. So let's jump into the chart of the little 8-year-old girl. And one of the first things that I'm looking at is Neptune on the ascendant and Pisces. So that would lend the girl to have an outlook of noticing things that aren't necessarily tangible to others. It can lead to a strong imagination. And so for this little girl, she's been designed this way, right? To take in all of the world and to see things that aren't necessarily tangible. And Neptune is right there, the Imagineer planet. It has a strong relationship with what Pisces is all about, with its goal being the Houdini or the healer, okay? So already right there, we know that she's going to take in a whole lot more than what we can see. So if this girl, and she has an issue with anger, and she gets angry and she doesn't know how to handle it, and things just spiral out of control. So we already know she's picking up things that are not necessarily in her environment. She's getting angry about things that she can't even articulate yet because she can't see them. We might look for, oh, I spilt a plate of food and I'm angry about that, I'm upset about that, or my brother accidentally bumped my knee and I'm upset about that. But there's a whole lot more going on underneath this little girl that she cannot articulate yet. Remember, Neptune is behind the curtains. It's a universal planet. It's the invitation to see what can't be seen or felt with the five senses. In addition, across the chart, we have her sun, and it's on the descendant. And the descendant is about me trying to get what I need, but understanding I need to work through others. So her sun is there. She's trying to learn how to do that. And she's trying to do it in a Virgonian way. Her sun is in Virgo. So there's a little bit of self-advocacy going on there. And this is all before we get to the moon. Because when my friend was first telling me about the problem, I'm like, okay, so either Mars is involved. First I went to the moon, then I went to Mars. And I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe Pluto, maybe Scorpio, let's take a look. Let's talk about this little girl's moon. She has a lot going on in her chart, and the assumption might be, oh, well, they're trines. They're all working easily together. Trines flow, and it can feel like a tidal wave at times. You can't get your head above water because everything is flowing so easily together. So yes, as I talked about in the last video, trines can be easy, but it can be easy to go overboard as well. So let's get back to her moon. This little girl's moon is in Aries. So the moon is your how you're going to keep calm and carry on kind of thing. And it is that internal motivator. It's the internal needs. It's the GPS for you and your life. You know, what directions feel right? You know, how do you feel about doing this and that? Okay, so it's in Aries. It wants to start things up. It has an air of being very self-focused because it is here to learn its power. It is also in the first house, which is what Aries is associated with. So it amplifies that message. In addition, it's in that lower quadrant, which is about learning our authority. It's the power. It's the push of the sun coming up over the ascendant. It's ambitious in that way. So here we have the moon, pushing up in that way, trying to understand its power, going above the chart. In Aries, it's about self-empowerment. So this little girl was born with this moon in Aries because she needs to learn to stand up for herself, to understand the inspiration, right? It's fire, and it's in a firehouse. So it's trying to understand that instinct, that inspiration, to catch on to that in a fiery way and to spread it. So she spreads her emotions to everyone in the house, and everyone hears it, and she has a hard time reeling it in. You could assume that just through talking about the moon and the ascendant, but there are other aspects to talk about here. This moon has a pretty tight connection with Saturn in the 10th house. It's a trine. Both are in fire signs. Saturn is learning about its, the teacher or the evangelist. So Saturn is, you have life lessons about how you put together your knowledge. You need to make sure it really works for you. It has to reflect who you are. It has to reflect research, study, drama, that kind of stuff, and putting together your own ideologies, because the suggestion is looking at this South Node in Aquarius, corporation, or the cult, that in a past life, however her soul was pieced together, she is carrying forward something unconscious that suggests it was a cult-like behavior. The South Node will always be the shadow of the sign, so corporation or the cult, the shadow of the sign, where she had her rights taken away. She could not think for herself. Whatever the story was, we won't go into a nodal analysis, but that's the suggestion. Saturn is playing a role in that and saying, you need to understand what your ideologies are and you need to stick to them. Okay, so that's one of the tightest aspects she has in her chart. She has one that's tighter. Those aspects in your chart that are really tight are where you need to look when you are having problems, because those are the conversations we talked about last time, the stage and all these characters on the stage, the planets with their psychological drives. If you have two planets in close conversation with each other, in close aspect, those are going to be loud conversations. This young soul has been on this planet for 8 years. She hasn't had a whole lot of experience in doing that yet, but she's learning that. She's learning about standing up for her beliefs and what makes sense and what doesn't. So Saturn, your life lessons, your obstacles, she's going to come up against obstacles about what she believes. Was my brother really trying to knock me off my feet by accidentally hitting me on the knee? Those beliefs aren't just about our spiritual beliefs, but they can be. These are things in Sagittarius that we just hold on to, these truths that we have that have not been tested like they will in Aquarius. Okay, back to the chart. Her moon is also opposite Jupiter. Makes things big. When you're in opposition, you have to yell. Remember, the moon, the internal feelings are yelling over at Jupiter in the 7th house about my ability to stand up for myself, diplomatic power, self-advocacy. And it's Jupiter's in Libra, right? The scales. Justice is going to be very important to this little girl, especially slanted toward her internal needs of standing up for herself. Aries. Aries wants to be the hero. It wants to not be the hero of everyone else. It can go like that. You have many Aries who do become the heroes for other people because they have such compassion and beliefs in themselves and their power that they can do something to solve it. But Aries is also learning to stand up for themselves. So oftentimes they'll get into situations in their childhood having to do with bullying. It could be in your adult period as well. But you're learning how to be Aries, right? Well, Moon, she feels that Aries. She feels that internal drive to protect herself and to stand up for others as well. Self-power, self-empowerment. It's like, oh, look at the power that I hold in my hands. Additionally, this moon has a relationship with Venus, which accentuates, these are my values. This is what I'm standing up for. It hasn't been necessarily checked by Saturn up there in the 10th house yet, but it will be, because there's a relationship there as well between these three planets. There's a trine. And then additionally, there's a relationship with Pluto. It's a little bit further away in degree, but remember, whenever we're talking about the sun or the moon, anything within 10 degrees, that sun and that moon are going to feel. Now let's take a quick look at her sun. Her sun over here in the 7th house is in aspect to Saturn as well, but it's a square, so it's tension. It's that, does this fit right for me? Virgo is discerning. She's learning how to discern. So as a young girl of 8 with that Saturn in Sagittarius. She won't necessarily discern yet. It is her life's journey to discern what is her truth. Think about that South Node in Aquarius, corporation or the cult. She carries with her, and she will empty it out over her lifetime, this caution about cult-like behaviors, believing things that aren't true for herself. Saturn in the 10th house in Sagittarius is going to help her do that through reading, through traveling, through expanding her knowledge, that kind of stuff with Sagittarius. Talking to other people, joining groups, but it's learning how do your beliefs stand up against others. You can do it like Taylor Swift does, through writing songs and stuff like that. Okay, let me not digress into other things. Let's get back to Saturn and the sun. Okay, no, wait, I want to go into Pluto and the sun, because look at Pluto, or the sun at 16, and look at Pluto over there at 16. Pluto is in Capricorn. Lead with the heart or lead with the wallet. The sun is discerning. This is the tightest degree in her chart. This is a loud conversation. Remember, Pluto is not necessarily conscious stuff. They are habits that we have. Pluto is the habits that we have that we don't think about, that don't work to our benefit anymore. It's related to that South Node. So Pluto has all of these habits, and they are habits that are the shadow of the sign. So lead with the heart, lead with the wallet. Well, from Pluto's relationship, you can suggest that there would be experiences in her soul's story that led with the wallet, didn't really care about her. Makes sense when you consider that South Node in Aquarius, corporation or the cult. So she's been used. Somewhere in her consciousness, she has been used. And there's a lot of shadow stuff in there that she hasn't had enough transiting aspects to her Pluto to unlock a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's the moon every month, the sun every year, but she's 8 years old. The more transits she gets to that Pluto, the more emptying out she'll do. And that sun is there in the 7th house, and that moon opposite, to help her work out that diplomatic power, that self-advocacy in the 7th house. She will be challenged to stand up for herself. She's doing it in a safe environment right now in her house, but these tantrums, and I'm not saying tantrums in a disparaging way, she's just 8 years old. She's learning the ways of the world. But through these tantrums, it's safe to do that in the family unit. It's not as safe to do it outside the family unit. And she'll start getting pressure that way, because as she goes out into the world will come back to her and say, yo, that is not an appropriate way to deal with your emotions. Now, fortunately, she has her mother. I'm going to briefly introduce her chart because relationship astrology is so important. And what we're going to look at here is the effect of her mom on her chart. So her chart's going to be in the center, and her mom's chart is going to be on the outside. There are a couple of red flags coming up for this relationship between mother and daughter, but there are also bridges that the mother can create. The mother is a very creative woman, and through her own difficult periods in her life, she has grown very wise. And she has a great toolkit to work with her daughter, but she has 3 kids, right? And it gets hard to juggle. But she's a teacher also, and she's just hugely insightful. So let's take a look at her chart with her daughters. So here's the daughter's chart. How does the mother affect the daughter? Well, let's look at some conjunctions. Those are the easiest things to look at because conjunctions are new starts. They are the most powerful kind of aspect, especially if they are to the lights of the chart. So right here we see the mom's ascendant, her outlook on life, Aries, self-empowerment or self-effacement, is conjunct to her moon and is applying to an aspect with her daughter's moon. Who better to teach her? Who better knows about those feelings on the inside, about standing up for the self, about being used by others, about being others, soccer ball or something, being kicked around? Who knows better? Who knows better about a difficult relationship with the mother? Moon in Aries. The moon can be the relationship with the mother. In Aries, it would be either a very strong mother personality or, and not getting along, or a very strong mother personality and getting along. Additionally, this mom's Venus is in conjunction with this daughter's sun. That will help this little girl piece things together. Venus and the sun are both aspirational in their own ways. And Venus really wants to be a peacekeeper, wants to help calm things down. It's about our values. So the mother, simply being her, exercising her values in Virgo. So in Virgo, there's an appreciation for simplicity. There's an appreciation for refinement. There's an ability to see things clearly. There can be an ability to sort out the details that really matter. And there's an ability to relate to people in a very earthy way. So this young girl with her sun in Virgo, very fortunate to have a mother with Venus in Virgo right on top of that, coaching her. Venus is a beautiful coach to the sun, very soft, very empathetic. But there is one aspect in their charts that could be a source of future tension. And that is this one right here between Mars and Pluto. This mother's Mars in Capricorn, lead with the heart, lead with the wallet, is a very earthy Mars. A lot of integrity in this woman. Tells the truth. Faces very difficult situations, but comes out of it with great wisdom. Gets things done in a methodical way, just like that Venus over in Virgo. They're trying in her own chart. And very efficient home. She's a homeschooler. I'm sure everything in the home is very organized. Haven't been there since she's had kids. I'm sure everything is very organized. And if it's not, because you have 3 kids and there's chaos, she has a good hold of that chaos and she understands how it affects the children and how it affects her. And so she knows the thresholds. But she's going to be more focused with that Mars in Capricorn on making sure that she takes actions with integrity. Now, there's her daughter. Now, Mars is assertive. It's get shit done. Pluto is hold on tight. Don't review this stuff. It's my shadow stuff. I'll do it when I want to. Just like that moon, right? The moon in the first house is like my way or the highway. All planets in the first house kind of work like that. Do it yourself, my way. But up in the 10th house, this daughter and her mother may have some battles in the future because the mother will want to take action on lead with the heart or lead with the wallet. She won't tolerate that lead with the wallet kind of stuff. She won't tolerate manipulating others, the quick solution. She's going to want and will do it in a fair way because of how her chart is designed. Very structured approach. As a homeschooler, you can't skip this lesson. You need to do this one before you get to this one. And if you don't want to do this one, this is the way this mother rolls, okay, we can deviate here, but you're going to have to come back to here. So it's very structured. That's what I talk about when I'm saying integrity. So that's a potential battle point too, though, as this little girl gets more transits to that Pluto, squares, conjunctions, oppositions, more of that Plutonian stuff is going to come about. On a good note, that mother will be there with Mars to help her sort through that. Here's how you work through that stuff, Mars. Get shit done in an earthy way, right? And with an idea toward your societal power, how you appear to others, how you want to appear to others. That mother will be able to coach her in that way, just as she can with the moon. But it's a tight line you're going to walk, especially as this young girl reaches 14 and she gets her first Saturn opposition. Because at 14, when her Saturn is now in Gemini, and her transiting Saturn is in Gemini, and her natal Saturn is in Sagittarius. Gemini is all about getting new ideas. It's going to challenge the way that she has thought for the first 14 years of her life. And that Saturn opposition is going to give her circumstances and experiences to restructure that Saturn in Sagittarius, to take in new lessons. But Saturn is probably going to be about that relationship with the parents because it's in that 10th house with her, the father. and the mother, because they are both leadership or societal power figures as a child. So let's take a look at the chart and see what solutions it offers for this mom and this little girl to help her reel in the emotions. The moon and Uranus are connected, so there's an ability here to get insight. Uranus is abrupt. It could also be playing, and it's, you don't calculate Uranus, it's the awakener. So it could be part of the problem with the emotions just going wild and turning into a 5-hour tantrum, maybe 2-day tantrum, whatever. Not tantrum, but emotional agita. Okay, so that could be playing a role in that. But Uranus is the awakener. She can get some insights. In addition, it's tied into this sixth house. There are aspects here. And her sun is in Virgo. And the sixth house can be associated with Virgo because of the things that it does, the life experiences that it brings. Now here she has Mercury at 29 degrees. It's an aspect to Uranus. Her north node is there as well. The north node is suggesting that she pulls her whole chart together in a way that is Leo. Self-confidence. So what would I recommend to this mom? Something creative to do. You could, because again, we have Mercury in Leo. This is art, this is writing, this is doing plays, this is any kind of creative work, digging a garden, anything that speaks to creating from the inside out. And I'm not suggesting that you try to wrangle all those emotions, into while they're doing it and say, go write about it. You have to work. Her Mars isn't really in tight aspect to anything. So, getting her to do anything other than just feel the emotions and it getting bigger and bigger, Neptune on the ascendant, right, to where she can't recognize what it was she was once feeling or what the trigger event was or why she thought that way or why she felt this way. I mean, this little girl is working through a lot of unconscious stuff. So she needs to make it conscious. She can do that with Mercury in Leo by doing those creative things. She could have, just when she's angry, a box of emotions written on a piece of paper and other trigger things like the names of animals. She's very much into animals. That's just so sixth house. Anyway, and Virgo. So she could just, pick out those things and then write about it. Or she could get on camera, and Leo, get on camera, right? And talk about it and talk about her anger and record it. And then 2 days later, go back to it and maybe write a little story about it, right? But she needs to see herself, to witness that. Saturn in the 10th house, public image. How does she want to be seen? Well, her sun in Virgo wants to be seen as someone who is balanced, methodical, caring, in service to others, aware of their gifts, and brings those to others. Ideally, with Saturn in Sagittarius in the 10th house and the ability to write, she could be a counselor one day. She could be a playwright and write plays about how to deal with difficult emotions. She could be into neuroscience and doing legal work, Sagittarius, on how to deal with folks who had difficult emotions and maybe the crimes that they committed or something, because you think about her Pisces ascendant and Neptune there, right? Healer or the Houdini. So those are some of the things that I would offer the mom to do with her. And the mom, because she is creative herself, will likely come up with thousands of other things. But putting her, away, and I understand the need to escape it, right, for your own sanity, because the impression was, these things can get pretty loud for everyone. Taking yourself away is one thing. Or asking her to go to a room and film herself and talk about it, she may not be able to do that in the heat of the moment, but to be able to do that, to get to that spot, to equate her emotions to certain animals, to certain trees, because Virgo, right? And Virgo is very earthy. In addition, this little girl is going to be receiving long-term aspects to some of her universal planets, which she will have awakenings. She'll get experiences that will help her see things in a different way. And she will be getting very soon some longer term transits to the Venus North Node Mercury makeup that she has. That's within the next year. This year, Jupiter will conjoin her Venus. And in Leo, it could open up creative expression. And I think that's in, when is that? Hold on, let me look at my notes. That is in September of this year, around her birthday time. Jupiter into Venus. This is the first time that she will ever have Jupiter on Venus, because it takes Jupiter 12 years to go around the chart. So she will have this aspect, this new start. It conjoins its natal Venus to expand in a different way, to let go. Jupiter closes a door, then it opens one. Thank you, Stephen Forrest. It's going to close a door about that sixth house stuff. Sixth house stuff is about who am I? It's taking what was done in Leo and all that creative stuff. You got the feedback. Some of it really hurt a lot. And it's time for you in the sixth house to discern what is working for the development of you. So she's going to have Jupiter there. So it's going to open a door to some sort of creative output as it hits Venus, then the North Node, and then Mercury. I don't think it hits Mercury till July 2027. In addition, prior to that transiting Jupiter, talking to her natal Mercury for the first time in 2027, prior to that, Saturn, now in Aries, is going to be talking to her Sun. It's going to conjoin it. So it's going to be a suggestion for, look, you really need to ground. Saturn is grounding obstacles. You really need to ground on these emotions that you're feeling and to understand them more. Saturn will try to bring wisdom with it through you climbing up those obstacles. And so what will it bring? It will bring a hardship in an 8-year-old, I think she'll be 9-year-old, 9 years old by then, kind of a way. But she's got her mom and dad there. And it's not going to be anything that she can't handle. The universe is beautiful in that way. And she'll continue to grow. And I just think she's going to grow to be a beautiful woman, just like her mother. A healer in her way. Her mother's a teacher. She heals through that. This little girl will be a healer in her own way, paying attention to that Saturn in the 10th house in Jupiter. And that Sun and Jupiter in her 7th house, self-advocacy and advocacy for others, and what she does in this world. And so that's my reading on my friend and her daughter. The chart offers solutions to all our life's drama. Much of it, I will say, is self-induced, at least for myself. And I'll see you next time.